Nebraska's former state ag director, Greg Ibach, now making a difference in Washington. We caught up with him to talk about some of the issues they're dealing with at the USDA. People see labels and think, oh, it's genetically modified, therefore it's bad. As we move into the newer technologies, can we make it an easier regulatory path to get those things on the store shelves without creating consumer fears?
So I think one of the biggest hurdles to biotechnology and to bringing new technologies to farmers and ranchers, but also new technologies that have consumer effect, you know, a non-browning apple that has more shelf stability and can last longer is important to consumers, has to do with, you know, the regulatory process. And there's cost if the regulatory process is burdensome and takes a lot of time. So it limits the size of a company, pretty much eliminates smaller entrepreneurial companies from getting in that game. And so as we look forward at some of the new technologies that are enabling us to work within a species or within an animal genome to be able to make those traits that we want to appear regularly, something that we've done over generations in the past, but now we have the ability to make it happen in a generation or two. And so I think that provides an opportunity for us to say, well, if we could do it the old-fashioned way, let's do it the newfangled way and just let more people work with us and bring more technology faster.
Let's talk about the animal health side of things. As we look at things like foot and mouth disease, how important is it, do you think, that we have a vaccine bank or have some of those discussions about making sure that that's contained? Because if there was a case of that, Lord knows what the response would be.
Day one, diagnosis one, we lose markets. And that has a big economic impact across the entire agricultural and not only Nebraska, but U.S. economy. And then the second priorities become then, how do we deal with it if it does happen? You know, how do we diagnose it? How do we have the capability to have those rapid indications of how far it's spread, and how do we put the fence up around it to contain it? And then finally, you know, depending on how far it's spread, a decision has to be made at some point in time as to whether or not, you know, we can contain it and stomp it out, or whether or not we need to use a vaccine that would make the animals immune to becoming infected.
A local farmer's taking a different spin on value-added agriculture, turning his corn into whiskey. NTV's Rashida Kaba has our story.
We all know that Nebraska is known for its corn, but what if I told you that one local farmer in St. Paul is taking his corn grain and putting it in your glass?
We plant the corn from day one. We'll plant in May and get to see the process all the way through. So I know exactly what's in that bottle. I think it helps with quality. It also helps with my story.
The story of a plant biology major turned corn farmer who now owns his own Loup River distillery.
This is the basic formula for every product. It's how you distill it that determines if you want whiskey, vodka. And then vodka is the base for gin too.
Eric and his wife Maria call it grain to glass service, using Eric's corn to create the product. And they use a lot of it.
All our batches are about 300 gallons, using about 500 pounds of corn. And we use a little sugar and yeast. So it's pretty basic, pretty simple recipe. We'll throw a little wheat and barley in there as well.
Taking 5 to 6 hours just to cook.
All temperature controlled, it's all steam heat. And this box controls temperature and all the other functions. So we're actually cooking our mash right now. To make whiskey, you got to cook it to release the starches.
Cool it down, then it's off to the fermenters.
These are fermenters. So this is where we add our yeast, and then it'll sit in there fermenting anywhere from 7 to 10 days.
Telling me he spends roughly 50 to 60 hours a week doing this. And then it's time for the final step, getting it to the glass.
We will provide tastings for each of our products, small little sample cups, and tastings are going to be complimentary.
Creating a house menu of cocktail options.
We've got something called an orange blossom cocktail with gin. We are using some barrel-aged products. In fact, we've got a barrel-aging Manhattan, and then something like an old-fashioned, more traditional cocktails.
Also serving local wine and beers. But if you have an idea that's not on the menu, they're willing to try that too. Maria is hoping people take away one thing from their Loup River experience.
And just really leave here with a sense of good feeling.
Loup River will open its doors this Wednesday at noon. Rashida Kaba, NTV News, St. Paul.
We'll take a look at the drought monitor up next in weather. Later, he plunged into a grain bin and lived to tell the story. His safety message for all of us still to come.